This episode's brought to you by Mando. Go to shopmando.com and use code DAN for a special offer, and stay tuned after the episode for more info. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell on the road from New York City in a hotel room with the world's loudest air conditioner that apparently you can't turn off. So I hope that this microphone is doing its job and making this video at least bearable for you to listen to, because there's something that I really wanted to talk about. One of the most hilarious breaking news stories that I can remember in quite some time. If you'll remember, back when I started this channel back in 2020, one of the earliest videos that I did was a review of the new, at that time, HBO Max streaming service. And I thought, as you would, that covering the launch of HBO Max would be a once-in-a-lifetime event, but Warner Bros. Discovery has proved me wrong. And let's be honest here, Warner Bros. Has been a trash fire for the last decade or so across many different iterations. Executives doing crazy stuff, leaks to the media, either ignoring or listening to the public but going the wrong way every time to their detriment. And I honestly thought that they were out of ways to surprise me, but yesterday proved me wrong. So strap in as I cover the long, sordid history of the Warner Bros. Streaming service, its many different names, and the reveal that HBO Max will be coming soon, still, again, to a TV near you. The HBO streaming saga actually started about 10 years ago with HBO Now. HBO Now was launched in 2015 as a standalone streaming service that would allow people without a cable subscription to access HBO programming. And it stood alongside HBO Go, which launched a few years earlier and was for cable subscribers, allowing them to watch HBO programming on their mobile devices. HBO Go and HBO Now were both big successes, but they were also early shots in the streaming wars. In October 2018, a few months after AT&T bought Time Warner and renamed it Warner Media, the company announced that they would launch a streaming service of their own to compete with Netflix. At the time, they were considered a late entry in the race, considering that Disney had announced their service over a year earlier in August of 2017. In July 2019, Warner Media announced that their new streaming service would be called HBO Max, and the reasoning behind that was that they wanted to leverage the already popular HBO brand to help them succeed. But even before HBO Max's launch, many already began to question why the company had 3 different HBO-branded streaming apps and wondered what would happen to all of them. Max, Go, and Now all served to dilute the HBO brand. HBO Max launched in the US on May 27, 2020, 6 months after Disney Plus's launch, and less than a month later, Warner Media announced that HBO Go would be discontinued entirely at the end of July. And HBO Now was briefly rebranded simply as the HBO app until the end of 2020, once all platforms made the new HBO Max app available. At that point in early 2021, HBO Max had finally become the only HBO branded streaming app, and they offered HBO programming as well as Max original programming and shows that had been licensed to the platform like Friends and The Big Bang Theory. And yes, it was a messy start with the Goes and the Nows and the Maxes of it all, but finally Warner Media had their streaming app, they were up and running, and this was the end of the question of what to call it, right? Well, not exactly, because in May 2021, a few months after the unification of all the HBO apps, and only about 3 years after acquiring Warner Bros., AT&T announced that they were looking to spin off Warner Media and merge it with Discovery, making it a new standalone company. Nearly a year later, in April 2022, the merger was completed, putting Discovery chief David Zaslav in charge of the new company, Warner Bros. Discovery. A few months after the corporate merger, WB Discovery announced that Discovery Plus and HBO Max would merge into one streaming service. Also, this was pitched by way of a graphic that I forgot about until Spencer Gilbert and Joe Starr reminded me in our group chat, where they pitched HBO Max as the home of lean-in programming, with Discovery Plus providing lean-back shows, with HBO Max being the home of fandoms and Discovery Plus offering genre-doms. Okay. And in April 2023, David Zaslav announced that the new unified app, currently known as HBO Max, would be rebranded simply to Max. At the time, CEO of global streaming JB Perrette said the name was changed because, and I swear this is an actual quote, Warner Brothers Discovery has some of the best known kids characters, animation, and brands in the industry. Not surprisingly, the category has not met its true potential on HBO Max. HBO is not TV, HBO is HBO. It needs to stay that way, which is why we will privilege it in the product experience and also not push it to the breaking point by forcing it to take on the full breadth of this new content proposition had we kept the name in the service brand. If you're like me, you're probably asking, why do executives all talk like aliens? And I'll give you a little hint. It's to cover up for the fact that they don't know what they're doing. But to translate that statement in human being terms, essentially, Warner Brothers Discovery felt that the HBO brand name was too adult, and they wanted their app to be known as something for everyone, including the kids, not something that only adults could get, so they decided to rebrand it Max to sell it as an everything app, kind of like Netflix, but also Netflix. David Zaslav also said the move was made to reduce subscriber cancellations or churn by flooding the service with more content, telling CNBC, quote, by increasing the amount of content we have on the platform, content for kids, content for families, nonfiction content, food, home, the biggest motion picture and TV library, by putting that whole bouquet of content, we think the broadest array of content available that the churn will come down. Now, it should be noted that despite this, at the same time, David Zaslav was making headlines by canceling and pulling programming from the streaming service, including refusing to release the Batgirl movie and Coyote vs. Acme, and pulling down existing programming like Westworld in an attempt to save money. A new round of programming set to be pulled, including some shows brought over from Discovery Plus, hit just a few weeks ago. The rebranded Max launched in April 2023 behind what was described as the most expensive marketing campaign in the company's history. And that launch was chaotic. I covered it at the time, but it included everything from mockery that prestige shows like The Sopranos now appeared next to shows like Dr. Pimple Popper, to a controversy around how creatives were credited on the service. It is also somewhat ironic that in the wake of rebranding as Max to help appeal to a family market, Warner Brothers Discovery did things like pulling the entirety of the classic Looney Tunes library from Max and ending its partnership with Sesame Street. But it did seem, once again, like Max had finally found some sort of identity until yesterday. This week is the Upfronts, a week where all the networks and streaming services unveil their plans for the next year to entice advertisers, and Max had another big announcement up their sleeve when they revealed that just over 2 years after HBO Max rebranded to Max, the streaming service is now changing their name once again to HBO Max. In a statement, Chairman and CEO of HBO and Max Content Casey Bloys said, quote, with the course we are on and strong momentum we are enjoying, we believe HBO Max far better represents our current consumer proposition, and it clearly states our implicit promise to deliver content that is recognized as unique and, to steal a line we always said at HBO, worth paying for. Once again, to translate into human terms, what that basically means is we thought that people just wanted to watch a whole bunch of garbage, but it turns out that they really want to watch things that are good. So in order to recapture that audience, we are embracing the HBO branding that we shunned just 2 years ago in order to make people think that our content isn't garbage. The network also said in a statement, and this is a doozy, quote, this evolution has been influenced by changing consumer needs and the fact that no consumer today is saying they want more content, but most consumers are saying they want better content. With other services filling the more basic needs with volume, Warner Brothers Discovery has clearly distinguished itself through its quality and distinct stories, and no brand has done that better and more consistently over 50 plus years than HBO. Returning the HBO brand into HBO Max will further drive the service forward and amplify the uniqueness that subscribers can expect from the offering. It is also a testament to Warner Brothers Discovery's willingness to keep boldly iterating its strategy and approach, leaning heavily on consumer data and insights to best position itself for success. Just to be clear, I think that this statement is absolutely bananas. First of all, they trash the quantity over quality strategy and really kind of insult Netflix without naming them for doing something so base and vile when that was their actual stated corporate strategy up until yesterday. Then they actually congratulate themselves as a company for being agile enough to undo a move that was done 2 years ago at great corporate expense, a move that many people at the time thought was incredibly stupid. So you made a mistake, and you're now congratulating yourself for having the boldness to undo the mistake that you shouldn't have made. Wow. And some in the industry believe that this is a precursor to a pending split in Warner Brothers Discovery, with HBO Max and the Warner Brothers Film Studio as one company and the Discovery Networks as a separate company, which is where we were before the merger in 2022. Long story short, as always, this version of Warner Brothers, like many before it, seems to be wildly spinning in place on fire, desperately trying to come up with a corporate strategy that will actually work. This company has been in crisis for the better part of a decade, and it seems like this is not the end of that crisis, but maybe the beginning of an all-new crisis, and I doubt that this is the last time I'll be covering Warner Brothers Discovery, or whatever the company will be known as, here on the channel. However, one thing I am looking forward to when this all settles is watching the documentary about this whole saga on Warner Brothers Pro Now Max Go Plus sometime in October of, let's say, 2030. So that is the long, sordid history of the former HBO Max, which became Max, which is now the former Max, and once again, HBO Max. What do you think about all this drama? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, Mando. I don't know about you, but I'm happy that it's spring and I can be outside again, taking a walk, hanging out with friends, mowing the lawn, minus the whole mowing the lawn part. And when I'm outside all day, it's important to have a deodorant that lasts as long as I do. Luckily, I found Mando. I'm a sweater, and I don't mean the garment, and nothing is worse than making a day of it outside and worrying that my deodorant is going to quit before I do. But I don't have to worry about that with Mando because it keeps me smelling fresh all day long, no matter how long that day is. Especially because I like to use a combo of Mando's cleansing bar in the shower, solid deodorant afterwards, and a spritz of their spray deodorant to top it all off. Mando's safe to use anywhere on your body and was created by a doctor who saw how body odor was being mishandled. All Mando products are baking soda free and paraben free, and they come in a variety of scents. My personal favorite is Mount Fuji, but I've tried them all and they smell great. And you know what? So do I. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for fans of the show, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with my exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code DAN at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support the show and tell them that I sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Thanks to Mando for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. I think I'm going to try to do one more video here in New York if this audio is in any way usable, a review of the big new movie coming out this weekend, and then I'll be back in the studio next week to cover the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.